Order. Members will resume their seats. Before I call the member for Drummoyne, I remind the House this is the member's maiden speech and would ask the House to extend to him the usual courtesies. The member for Drummoyne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this evening to speak in this Parliament in front of so many people that have shaped my life. I'm deeply honoured and gratified, yet very humbled. A newly elected Member of Parliament, part of a newly elected government, and now a small part of this great institution, proud and rich in history and tradition. I'm especially proud to be representing the people of my electorate, Drummoyne. The last Liberal member for Drummoyne, Walter Lawrence, stood here some 49 years ago in 1962, before I was even born. I thank those hard-working Liberal candidates before me who fought the good fight in Drummoyne against the tide. I know Greg Long put in a lot of work in the prior two elections. In fact, John Howard was unsuccessful in winning Drummoyne in 1968, but thankfully went on to serve as one of the greatest Prime Ministers this country has ever seen. Madam Speaker, Drummoyne is my home, my priority and my future. Drummoyne reflects the evolving nature of our country with its rich, diverse, multicultural origins and its wide spectrum of socio-economic groups. Mostly the people of Drummoyne are representative of the great Australian character, very tolerant, very understanding, irreverent humour in all things, and of course strong allegiances and pride for their homes. In fact, Mr. Speaker, every member in every seat, in every maiden speech since the election trumps the beauties of their electorate. In fact, yesterday, the member for Kiama, the acting Speaker, went as far to say his electorate must surely be the prize because most members holiday in his electorate. Well, not to be outdone, when I wake up every morning and look out my window, I wake up to that holiday in Drummoyne. Beautiful waterways, parks, schools, churches, gourmet delicatessens, Sydney's best cafes, golf courses, Italian patisseries. We've got it all. But best of all, we have a community. So much so that when my wife sends me to the shop to buy the milk, it takes about 2 hours because you bump into people all the time. But Mr. Speaker, I owe my gratitude and my trust and faith to the people of Drummoyne. I pledge to work tirelessly to be an outstanding member. My relationship with the electorate started when I was about 6 years old. I was educated at All Hallows Primary School in Five Dock and then secondary school at De La Salle College, Ashfield. I note the member for Fairfield also attended De La Salle. I furthered my studies at Ryde College at TAFE, as it was known then, specialising in hospitality. Small business runs deep in my veins. In fact, as children, my sister and I would work every weekend down the markets with my parents, who had fruit and vegetable stands. I grew up down the markets, and to this day I can confidently say that salt of the earth people are bred there. It's a real exercise in character building. And some 20 years later, it was very pleasant to find myself with the Honourable Premier Barry O'Farrell and other parliamentary colleagues at Flemington Markets in the middle of an election campaign. Years of face-to-face work with the public exposed me to the harsh realities of business and the hardships faced by the ordinary person. My most recent work has been in the family-owned function centre in Five Dock. My parents, wife and I successfully ran this business for over 15 years, picking up a swag of industry awards for excellence along the way. In fact, I compared in excess of 3,000 weddings, social functions, corporate functions. In fact, the residents of Drummoyne joke about it all the time that I've gone from John Sidoti, the MC, to John Sidoti, the MP. Though my true passion has always been politics. Politics as a channel for growth and change, Politics as a means of serving the public. Mr. Speaker, I've had the honour of being elected a councillor and the privilege of serving the people of Burwood as their mayor. Some of my main achievements in a short time included the restructuring of 4 directors to 2, making council a leaner, more efficient council, the restructuring of the rubbish service, saving residents $500,000 a year, and under my stewardship, the record sale price of council properties to fund our council's strategic visions. I also embarked on a number of community infrastructure projects, as well as the funding of a part scholarship for the Joan Sutherland Foundation. And now, as a member of the Legislative Assembly in this 55th Parliament of New South Wales, I can continue to work to fulfil my ambition to serve the community I love and grew up with. None of these achievements could have been possible without a strong foundation of core values. I'm certainly tremendously proud of my Italian heritage. My father, Richard, is from the Aeolian Islands of Sicily, and my mother, Catherine, is from a tiny town in Calabria called Terranova. Together, they instilled in me an unwavering work ethic, belief in the family, and respect for those around me. Interestingly, the Drummoyne electorate has the highest proportion of residents from southern Europe, so the very fact that I am the son of migrant Italians has a symmetry to it of which I'm extremely proud. I'm very passionate about Drummoyne. In fact, I joke with my father-in-law regularly, who's here in the gallery tonight, that there's no life outside of Five Dock. God's country, I call it. In fact, I'm proud to address this Parliament in this important week, recognising Italy's 150 years of unification and the 65th anniversary of its referendum that ultimately led to Italy becoming a republic. Now, history is very, very important, as you know, because if you haven't got a history, you haven't got a future. So you could understand I get upset when people say that James Cook was the first to step onto Botany Bay in 1770 when he got off his boat. But I tend to get upset because the true fact was that it wasn't James Cook. You guessed it, it was an Italian. It was a guy called Giacomo Matra, and hence the suburb Matraville. But full marks for trying. Mr. Speaker, like many electorates though, Drummoyne has suffered under 16 years of Labor. Overdevelopment not matched by proper infrastructure. Traffic congestion and crowded public transport are all urgent challenges. I'm confident, though, that this government will face these challenges with talent, enthusiasm, fairness and vision. And if I may quote Albert Einstein, the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we quoted them, when we crafted them, unquote. This government is this new level of thinking, and the people of New South Wales deserve nothing less. Like the rest of New South Wales, the people of Drummoyne spoke emphatically and directly at the March election. However, local issues of importance also featured. They don't want a marina at Kendall Bay. They don't appreciate the waste of $175 million on a duplicate Iron Cove Bridge that has not improved motorist travel times. They expect the M4 extension to be prioritised. That will be something my colleague Charles Cassicelli MP, member for Strathfield, and I will be fighting for. Rat running has reached unacceptable levels since the toll has been removed on the M4. We must improve the Rivercat services that the many residents have been crying out for. Wherever possible, we must work hard to provide Concord Hospital with the funds and the resources needed to provide the services the residents deserve. I also note that there are many mayors and councillors that have been elected to Parliament this time round, and I would hope that the message from the coalface is loud and clear. Local government has been treated with contempt, and cost shifting had become common practice under the previous government. I would hope that this is a thing of the past. I've made so many friends in local government right across New South Wales, of all political persuasions, of which many are here tonight. Can I say thank you for your friendship? Mr Speaker, the community expects their government to exercise responsibility and fairness across all issues, whether of state significance or of local importance. Decisions made by governments affect each and every person in the state, not just those who vote. It is the responsibility of government to deliver strategies that will not only prepare us for the future, but will add to our economic well-being. We live in an ever-changing environment where information is a mere click away and news is measured in microseconds. As a Member of Parliament, I am one of those people entrusted with ratifying laws that determine the way we live. I do not for one moment take that for granted. It's about being accountable. It's about being understanding. And more importantly, it's about listening. Being a Member of Parliament means that I can make a difference to the way we live. And that alone gives me enormous drive and energy. One of the main reasons I chose to run for the seat of Drummoyne was exactly that. I had a vision of how I perceived this state should be run and thought we could do better. A key area of reform for the O'Farrell government, one which will help kickstart the economy and create jobs, is small business. I'm talking about small business because I've been involved in small business and I know how hard it is to get through the red tape and the forms and the accounting procedures that are now required by government. It's hard enough to run a small business without the added burdens imposed by governments. Under this government, I'm pleased to say that this will be reversed. We have a plan to tackle the problems associated with the hiring of staff by reducing the payroll tax threshold and thereby having the ability to reduce the costs for employers. This was very well received when the member for Manly, the Honourable Treasurer, Mike Baird, visited Drummoyne. I've seen many small business operators over the years in the Drummoyne electorate struggle through the unfair taxes and an overburden of bureaucratic red tape. The electorate of Drummoyne has a high density of small businesses, and as I door-knocked in excess of 17,000 homes and businesses during the election campaign, I heard the same story time and time and time again. Mr Speaker, I ask for an extension.
The question is that the member for Drummoyne's time be extended. All of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I heard the same story time and time again, that government regulation was strangling the ability to make a profit and preventing the possibility of employing more staff. This government has given a firm undertaking to the people of this state to do something about it. And I'm delighted to be able to stand in this chamber tonight and assure all those small businesses in my area that we are there for you. During our first term, we'll honour an election promise to ensure the first 100,000 new jobs will be payroll tax-free. This will not only give operators the ability to hire more staff, but it will also reduce the burden of yet another tax to pay and yet more red tape to wade through. Businesses can only survive and prosper if it's given the opportunity to do its business. Operators don't want to be tied down in filling out forms to justify their very existence. They want to run their businesses to achieve positive results and profits. When I decided to run as a Liberal candidate, I did so because I always believe that the creation of a strong business environment will serve to establish a framework from which all members of society will benefit. Governments rely on a viable private sector and the business sector relies on governments. It's essential that governments encourage business and not inhibit their ability to operate. The O'Farrell-Stoner government will do just that. So I mention proudly O'Farrell-Stoner, Liberal National, because it's a partnership, and I'm also proud of the Nats as well. We've got a lot in common. Just visit 5 Dock and I'll show you a real veggie patch. Mr Speaker, I stand here before the chambers tonight, committed to work for a better deal for the people of Drummoyne and the people of New South Wales. We can do better. We can do better. We can restore investment in this state, working on the basics, reducing taxes, creating employment opportunities and creating a stable environment where business can thrive. It's a great privilege for this Drummoyne boy to speak tonight as the member for Drummoyne. I come here with much hope and an abundance of energy and vision. I am indeed so fortunate to be part of an outstanding and talented Liberal and National team that forms this government. I look forward to bringing fresh ideas on debates on topics like land tax, small business, multicultural affairs, local government reforms. These are areas, to me, that are very, very important, and areas that affect people, how they live and work, and therefore are of paramount importance. I must acknowledge, however, the tremendous efforts by those supporting me, as without that support, I could not have achieved such an outstanding election result for Drummoyne, a 24.3% swing. My team was strong, determined and tireless. My campaign manager, Mr Joe Tanos, deserves the highest praise and thanks. My sincere thanks to you, Joe. His apologies are sent tonight as his son is not well. My thanks also to the Honourable Don Harwin, a great tactician, strategist and intellectual. Thank you, Don. Thank you to my great friend and my colleague, the Honourable Marie Ficarra and Vince DeLuca. Thank you very much. Madam, it's like an Italian wedding. Madam Speaker, my campaign team were magnificent. Thank you to the Honourable John Joblin, who's here tonight also. Neil Harley, who was absolutely brilliant. Morgan Forrest, terrific. Zach Miles, Sarah Lawrence, Suzanne Montrone, and of course Phil Montrone. Thank you, Phil, for all your help. The very hard-working volunteers like Joseph Del Duca. John Caputo was fantastic and he brought all the Manly team over to help. George Orban, and the very hard-working members like Alan and Lorna Wright, Jeanette and Michael York, and George Orban Sr. over so many years. These are people that have devoted their lives to Liberal values and the party. Congratulations. I must single out also Bill and Margaret Garling for their help, and also Mr Michael Photius. I must thank Michael Megner in particular and his family, particularly my godmother who's here in the gallery tonight, Mrs Frances Megner, for her support. It has been unwavering over so many years. These are friendships that span over 35 years. Michael Ross deserves a special mention as he was the first to come out and help and probably one of the last to stop. It wasn't easy. It was a year-long campaign in Drummoyne. I thank Biagio Meli, who I notice is in the gallery, and Luigi Bucciarelli for their help. These are people who have helped me unconditionally whenever I've needed them. I thank John Lutman and Dennis Bennett for their wisdom. These are people who aren't even members of the party. Well, we might fix that soon. But I'd also like to acknowledge George and Arthur Coorey for their friendship and their support, and all the members of Parliament who visited the electorate throughout the campaign. They are numerous, but I might as well take this opportunity and mention them. The Honourable Mike Baird, the Honourable Chris Harcher, the Honourable Mike Gallagher, the Honourable Gillian Skinner, the Honourable Don Harwin, the Honourable Marie Ficarra, the Honourable Kevin Humphreys, the Honourable Andrew Fraser, the Honourable Gillian Skinner, the Honourable Don Page, the Honourable Victor Dominella, and of course the Honourable David Clark. Thank you for all your help. And that shows the level of support I had in Drummoyne. I'd like to pay special tribute to the Premier, the Honourable Barry O'Farrell, for visiting Drummoyne no fewer than 5 times throughout the campaign, and of course the Honourable Joe Hockey for his presence in opening our campaign office. I know the community were impressed, and it showed the candidate that he was well supported. There's so many thank yous, but I'd like to thank Mark Neame and the team at Liberal Party headquarters, Chris Stone, Lisa Marie Shell and all the crew, and of course James Boland-Rudder was brilliant. But Mr Speaker, there are no prouder people in the gallery here tonight than my parents. They are representative of the success stories that fill the Australian immigrant landscape. They came to Sydney in the 50s, young, hopeful and willing to work. They fell in love with this country, adopted its language, its culture, its traditions and made it their home. They added enormous contribution in terms of work and culture, and now their children form the fabric of its future. What an honour for me to extend their vision for their own family and this country. I love them both. Any success I've had or will have in the future is due to their strong values passed on to me. Mr Speaker, on the subject of my parents, I'd like to share a story, if I may indulge the gallery, because my campaign was definitely anything but dull. My parents' contribution could only be described as enthusiastic and determined. Let me say that my father, Richard, went as far as converting his silver Camry into a drive-by advertisement. It was brilliant, complete with a homemade crooked A-frame perched on its roof racks with my photo of a call flute. He drove that car with pride and gusto, so much so that one day he drove into Westfields and took out the boom gate with the A-frames. Dad, what a legend. Now, let's not forget my mother, Catherine. She's probably covering her face at this moment. She was the queen bee at the pre-polling booths. She'd first greet every constituent with a big, cheesy grin, and then she'd slyly pull out the voting form and say, "Isn't he gorgeous? Vote for my son." Well, the public were pleasantly surprised by her approach, but before they even knew it, she was escorting them arm by arm into the ballot box. Mum, what would I do without you? I thank my sister for her guidance and my brother-in-law for his wisdom, and to my extended family, my in-laws, my sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws for their unfailing support. To all those who manned the booths, the volunteers, the Canada Bay councillors who fought the heat, the rain on railway stations and the ferry wharves, thank you. As all members know, this job could not be done without the support of your better half. My wife Sandra is beautiful, intelligent, wonderful, remarkable. Sorry, Sandra, I can't read your writing. I'll be sleeping off the cat tonight. No, seriously, my beautiful wife Sandra has been unflinching in her support. I married my childhood sweetheart 17 years ago, and without her understanding and commitment, I could not have achieved this result. Sandra is a wonderful mother to my three amazing children, Julian, Fabian and Ava. Thank you to all my family and friends. Mr. Speaker, I still haven't come to terms with the positive community reception I've actually received following the election. I've been mobbed by kind wishes and have been emotionally touched by people's gestures. It's been heartwarming and at times overwhelming. I tell regularly the story of when I went to buy the newspaper to read the final election results the morning after the election, and I was met by a little old Italian lady who I'd seen before but not known real well, and she sort of came up to me and hugged me and actually cried in my arms, and she said in Italian, "Like a son, you deserve it." Such is the level of emotion displayed to me by so many people. In fact, I'm very proud to have in the gallery here tonight somebody that I really didn't know prior to the election, who I got to know throughout and followed me every step of the way. And that's 91-year-old Mr. Gaetano Barbato, who's here in the gallery tonight. Who, when asked by the Sydney Morning Herald journalist who he voted for, he replied, "I voted for Sidoti with two hands." In concluding tonight, I'd like to say that the depth of desire for change, a liberal change, is reflected in these gestures. This is a powerful, powerful reminder of what our community expects. My electorate, like so many around this state, have been desperate to trust again, have been desperate to hope again, and have been desperate to feel the optimism of being number one again. Thank you. Well done.